Giant Brian, the most terrifying criminal since, I don't know, that one purple salamander from Monsters Inc. But even a bone-chilling convict such as Brian would struggle not to shudder at his current predicament. Having retired to the peaceful countryside of Stardew Valley, his serene lifestyle took a turn for the worst when he just couldn't resist shoplifting 4 crates of tomato and basil soup from the local supermarket. I mean, it was called a supermarket for a reason, right? Brian had now been sentenced to a fate worse than death. 420 years in the horrifying scientific testing facility of Wicked Ward. Brian was now not merely a prisoner, but a test subject. No more than a bold guinea pig, a lab rat for Officer Nasty Pasty's gruesome experiments. Looking around, for the first time, he felt sorry for his fellow inmates, for all the terrible things that Curb Stomper and Figgy Biscuit had probably endured. Their former prison companions had been transformed into grotesque, undead guards. Brian couldn't help but feel that soon, he too would be ending up in a coffin. Wait, hang on, no. Giant Brian couldn't be locked in a box, coffin or otherwise. He was the world's greatest escapist for shrieking out loud, and he would do what he always did. Escape! Ow! Oh, that's weird. This fence seems to be... Ow. Yep, definitely electrified. That is an electric fence. Let's not do that again, Brian. If the simple run-into fence trick didn't work, he would have to explore other parts of the prison. Brian had a keen eye for exit points and secret passages and ghosts. Did you see that too, Fruit Gums? Please tell me you saw that. What about you, Don Krieg? What are you doing here? Brian and Don had been partners in crime on many occasions, but upon staring into his old companion's eyes, he saw only a shell of the great man that had helped him take down the evil Tesco's empire. Brian had to spend a couple of hours hiding in a locker just to come to terms with the whole situation, and who could blame him? This place was damn near haunted. Ghosts walk the hallways all days, a spirit around every corner, and oh god, Officer has come back to life as well. She's returned as a phantom to place a curse on me. Oh, no wait, she never actually died in the first place, did she? I think the canon ending was she was sent to prison in, well, come to think of it, here. Alright, what do you want this time then, Officer? Why does everyone around here treat the zombies so badly? Typical. Of course she would side with the zombies, the rotten little bit. Officer was a schemer, and if she was stooping low enough to ask Brian for help, perhaps she had some sort of escape plan that he could be privy to. He would follow her lead for now, and hopping and skipping into action, Brian began to complete a series of side quests Officer had given him. Fetching a zombie's hand. Oh, let's just wait for Officer Weeping Sore to leave the room. Hang on. There we go. That's that one checked off. Then crafting some wood and a handkerchief together to make her a pretend flower. Hold on. What was this? Prison dating simulator? Brian wasn't quite following the relevance of Officer's step-by-step plan so far. He had half a mind to ditch this and go and team up with Don Krieg again, but Don was too busy being shot. I suppose this padded inmate outfit will come in useful. Cheers for that, Don. But his old nemesis's orders continued to get stranger and stranger. First she asked Brian to fetch her a can of Red Bull. Then she wanted him to craft her an axe. I don't know, Officer, should you really be handling an axe when you're that juiced up on electrolytes? And also, it's not that easy to just whip up a battle axe. We're in prison. All I've got to work with is toilet paper and talcum powder. The hardest task of all, however, proved to be finding a roll of duct tape, for which Brian had to break into the prison's creepy basement storeroom. Somehow, he would have to get through this red door. Thankfully, Officer Dossbrain had a red key going spare, and after beating him up in an incredibly long and really quite comical Tom and Jerry style chase scene, "Come back here you, I'll get you one of these days." He bleached his prison uniform to pose as a prison doctor, then made his way downstairs where he faced yet another problem. To get to the red door, he had to sneak past a contraband detector, the problem being that his red key was classed as contraband. He could drop the key before going through the detector, but then he needed the key to open the door, so let me just work this out for a second. Wait, no, don't take that. Oh, god damn it. Great. Now I've got to make another one. The next time round, Brian decided to be a bit more careful and painted his skin green to pose as a prison guard. Problem solved. Nobody batted an eyelid and the task was complete. Finally, after all that finagling and side questing, Officer revealed her grand plan. Sort of. She gave Brian a random old ass looking ass key and then told him to find his own way out. Right, cheers for that. Couldn't have told me what the zombie hand and all that other garbage was for, no? But Brian wasn't giving up hope just yet. Officer might have thought she'd taken Brian for a fool, but he knew that where there was a key, there was always a door. It was just a matter of finding it and... of course, that's it! The crypt. Spooky graveyards always had a secret passage. All he had to do was find some way to sneak down there undetected. He wondered if Don Krieg had any bright ideas, but Don was busy trying to woo a female prisoner. It was probably fruit gums. Curse her and her fruity gums. Anyway, Don should avoid her like the plague. Last time Brian bumped into her, she was being haunted by spirits of the dead. And then it hit him. That was it. The best way to get down into the crypt was to die. Brian would have to betray everything he believed in. He was going to lock himself inside of a box. Finding a spare coffin, he clambered inside and waited for the prison gravedigger. Before he knew it, he was being carted down to the creepiest, dankest, darkest crypt he had ever seen, and, lo and behold, just as suspected, there was a secret passage. Brian had done it. He was away! Oh, act casual everyone, there's some trick-or-treaters. Listen, let me through, Teen Wolf. I'm kind of in a rush here, cause, no, here come the guards. Brian was done for. Oh, wait, no, he's run straight past us. Well, that was convenient. What was less convenient is that Brian could no longer escape to the east. His route back to Stardew Valley would have to detour north. There could be anything up there. Wolves, bears, northerners, elephants. What? Hang on a minute. Mysterious men in top hats, giant novelty-sized cannons. Oh no. Brian had stumbled into a circus. The fact that everyone, including himself somehow, was now wearing clown makeup made this place even creepier than the last. And for good reason, as this circus turned out to be an offshoot of Wicked Ward. Defective test subjects were sent here to perform in their freak show. Brian was now riding unicycles and hula hooping with the likes of Mr. Banjo and Strongman Bruno. It was at this point that he seriously questioned how his life had ended up here, but right. I'm sorry, there was no way he was staying in this pantomime prison either. Giant Brian was going to escape once more, and he had a hunch that giant cannon might just have something to do with it. He began to gather materials, a crowbar, a coconut, a bunch of springs which he ransacked by climbing on top of the circus train and sneaking inside through a roof panel. Then it was just a matter of duct tape and timber and a clown horn. He didn't need the clown horn, it was kind of funny. And in no time at all, Brian had a launch pad and he had a helmet. Now was his moment. Oh, actually just a sec, gotta do a bit of fire breathing first apparently. Let's just get this over with real quick, shall we? And now was his moment. Plonking his coconut shell onto his hairless cranium, Brian bundled himself into the extra long barrel and lit the fuse. With a great bang and a flourish of confetti, he went soaring through the air. Arms wheeling in circles, he had picked up some speed. It was great from a distance perspective, but how was he going to slow down? Brian hit a tree. Disappointingly, the tree in question was back inside of Wicked Ward. Perhaps he should have checked which direction the cannon was pointing before firing himself out of it. Okay, this wasn't even funny anymore. Brian was willing to do just about anything to break out of this Scooby-Doo mystery crew-ass nightmare. There were sections of this compound that were mysteriously off-limits. Perhaps they were worth a go, but to reach them, he would need some help. And seeing as Don Krieg was dead behind the eyes, and he'd rather be dead than team up with Fruit Gums, that left him with only one viable sidekick. Oh phew, Officer is still here. What was the point in all of them side quests then if you haven't even escaped yet? I went and fetched a literal human arm for you and you didn't even do anything with it. I stand corrected. The pieces suddenly fit into place. To escape this nightmare, Officer was going to create a nightmare of her own. The silhouette of a hulking monster lay beneath a sheet, but it was still missing an arm and a leg. Brian guessed that was where he came in. He always knew in the escapist business he was going to have to amputate something someday. Oh, what was that? The prison was literally full of zombies, so just steal some limbs off them instead. Good point, Officer. No, fair enough, good point. And the duo got to work. Brian initiated several more scuffles with the prison guards and copied both cyan and red keycards. With these, they could break into more restricted sections, one of which, in the top right of the prison, contained a zombie leg. Just an arm to go, but the next heist was a bit trickier. Brian had to don his medical outfit once more to sneak behind the hospital wing and open a cyan door, before he and Officer shifted inside and snatched up a fresh monster arm. The final piece of the puzzle. All they had to do now was head back to the... Hey, Officer, I think you've forgotten to let me out. I'm still in the medical cupboard. Uh-oh. To be fair, Brian probably should have predicted his arch nemesis would betray him at some point. But that was it then. There was no way out. It would be roll call soon. The guards would realise he was missing and they'd send the dogs after him. All that work just to let Officer escape without him, but what was this? All of a sudden, Don Krieg had burst into life. It was as if he could sense his faithful compadre was in danger. He arrived at the medical bay in a flash and he couldn't get through the door because he didn't have a medical disguise. There was still time though. If he could just find a bottle of bleach, he could craft one for himself, but he didn't have enough intellect to make the recipe, so he might still get there in time if he could just read fast enough. Before Don could speedrun his way through the entire library, however, Brian was mauled by a pack of hounds. Still, Don did make it eventually, and together, the two of them limped out of there, hunted down Officer, beat her up, took back the monster arm, and then just to rub it in, waved it in her face while she was recovering in hospital. "Peace out, you old witch," they shouted, as the two troublemakers snuck back into the evil lab and prepared their Frankenstein for awakening. Brian sprinted up to the rooftops and thrust an old rusty spike of metal into the highest point. With a clap of thunder, a jolt of lightning was sent straight down to the carcass below. "It's alive! The monster is alive!" Brian was going a little mad with power at this point, but the very sight of the beast sent guards and scientists and inmates alike running in fear. And thankfully on their way out, they forgot to shut the prison exit. Brian and Don were free. Sure, they had resurrected a great evil and sent it out to inevitably destroy everything in its wake, but it was Halloween, this sort of stuff happens all the time, and in fact, Brian felt a craving for something sweet. Say, Don, fancy going down to the local shops? I want to do a trick or treat. The treat is a Freddo frog, and the trick is that I take it without paying for it.